U.S. fleet led by 2 aircraft carriers is moving in the waters near Iran following days of renewed fighting.
Those forces are gathering as President Trump issues a firm deadline for Tehran to publicly renounce attacks in the Strait of Hormuz.
Madeleine Rivera joining us now from Washington with the very latest. Good morning, Madeleine.
Hi, good morning. That's right. A flurry of diplomatic talks is underway to try and get this memo of understanding back on track. The U.S. maintains Iran violated the MOU when it attacked ships transiting through the Strait of Hormuz. To get confidence that Iran is serious about a peace deal, U.S. officials reportedly want Iran to admit they made a mistake. Per Axios, U.S. officials want Iran to publicly acknowledge the strait is open, commit to stopping attacks on commercial vessels, and recognize that shipping lanes will remain open without tolls. U.S. officials have insisted part of the problem with reaching a long-lasting agreement is that the leadership structure in Iran is fragmented, and there are hardliners who are pushing for aggressive action. This comes as reports have surfaced about a new Iranian plan to kill President Trump. The president warning on Truth Social 1,000 missiles are locked and loaded and aimed at the Islamic Republic of Iran, with thousands of more to immediately follow should the Iranian government act on its threat, pronounced in many corners of the globe to assassinate or attempt to assassinate the sitting president of the United States of America, in this case, me. Orders have already been given. Despite the tensions, Iran state media says the regime's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi is in Oman for negotiations. His focus is reportedly on the safe passage of vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Araghchi saying Iran has so far kept its word, unlike the so-called U.S. Treasury Secretary who was violating Para 9 of the MOU. That violation follows other violations and missteps by the United States. Reality check, there can only be mutual compliance. Iran state media is also reporting the supreme leader will issue a message in the coming hours regarding the funeral of the late Ayatollah Khamenei. Charlie, Rachel, and Griff.
All right, Madeleine.
Thanks, Madeleine.
Thank you very much.
You really do get the sense that Iran has miscalculated President Trump in thinking that he's like a normal politician or a normal president who is going to be completely governed by the fact that this is an election year and this is not a terribly popular operation in Iran. But President Trump doesn't really care so much about that as he does about getting about the overall objective. And if you if you mess with him, he's going to retaliate.
Yeah, well, Madeleine talked about the seriousness of this, obviously, but also that some of the leaders are more hardline. And there's a reason for that. One is a lot of people have reported that the leadership we took out was a little more moderate than the leadership that came in. In addition, a lot of reports about Israel assassinating and even continuing to want to assassinate anyone who appears to want to be a moderate and negotiate with the United States. So that is a huge problem. And again, the polling was showing when there was an agreement, when the MOU first came out, wildly popular. The American people want the president to figure this out, be done with this engagement in Iran, get the Straits of Hormuz open, make sure they can't have nuclear weapons, but they don't want this prolonged engagement. I've been hearing that, there's a possibility that American troops might end up going into Lebanon now to help with the Hezbollah situation that Israel is fighting over there. That would not be popular.
No, but as you mentioned, so the Wall Street Journal was reporting on this Israel uncovered plot to kill President Trump. But pulling back just a little bit, enough with the moderates versus the hardliners. This is Iran playing for time. And President Trump has shown tremendous patience to try and get to a historic agreement that no other previous administration, let alone in an election year, was willing to have the courage to do. But you need no more proof than the dead past Ayatollah's funeral when they're literally, did you see this banner? They're waving a banner calling for President Trump's death. And so whether there is an actual plot unfold or not, you see the message clearly. There it is. We will kill Trump. A giant banner being paraded in the funeral for the late Ayatollah.
That doesn't look like it was put together by some protesters organically. Yeah, that one either.
That.
I think that maybe Iran's major printing plant was deployed to pump that out.
But that's nothing new. I mean, we've known that the Iranians have wanted to kill Trump.
Oh, yeah.
They've been chanting death to America, death to Israel for a long time. Here's some more of these chants. Listen. So this is nothing novel. This has been going on for a long time. Maybe it's more intense now because we killed the Ayatollah. So that's tit for tat there. But they've been wanting to kill Americans and specifically our leadership for a long time.
And of course, the real frustration right now is that you see demonstrations like this, and I don't think that it necessarily reflects the real interest of the people. What we're not seeing right now are the counter-regime protests, and one of the reasons we're not seeing them right now is that tens of thousands of protesters were killed earlier this year by the regime.
No question about that.
Well, President Trump's made it very clear in his Truth Social yesterday, saying there's a plan in place if something should happen to me. I love, by the way, in that same message, he said, I hope you'll miss me. Even having some levity in the seriousness of the situation. But the other thing that's worth noting...
He's skirted death before. I mean, nobody's had... There's no sitting president that has had as many assassination attempts. It's not just the Iranians. He's had American Democrats attempt to take shots at him.
And it's so out there that he talks openly about it and says, look, if you kill me, I have a process in place if something happens to me about what's going to happen to you in response, which is the most Trumpian thing ever.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.